This is the Storyworks Roundtable, where we have conversations about craft. Because becoming a successful author begins with writing a great story. Hello and welcome to tonight's Storyworks Roundtable. Robert and I are going to talk about supporting characters. Catherine still has time off, so we're just holding down the fort. Robert, you had some interesting questions about supporting characters. Do you want to start us off with a few thoughts or a question?
Yes, I suppose the big one is, how do you develop your supporting characters without them getting in the way of, say, a fast-paced story or confusing what the reader is trying to read, which is essentially the protagonist's arc. So it's all very well to have supporting characters who have arcs and needs and wants and stakes, but I struggle with generally I end up with cardboard secondary characters because I can't be bothered to flesh them out. I suppose is probably, I would say that's weakness in my writing.
It's the confessional moment in SWRT. Right. Well, okay, first I would say that the process for developing any character is the same, but your protagonist needs the most. So it's not that you have to do different things to develop your supporting characters. It's that you don't have to do as much of it because that character's role in the story isn't as big. So your hero's best friend is only going to fill, a certain role in the hero's life. So how much of that friend's person is relevant to the hero and to the story? And, you need to know how the friends met, how long they've been friends for, what they like about each other, what the personality is of that best friend. But I'll use an example from Skog Hall. In book 1, Jess's best friend Chandra was just someone she thought about and kept trying to email, but her internet was crappy. In book 2, Chandra came to town and visited, so we actually got to see her. And she was on vacation and she was kind of partying hard. So we learned what her job is and that she's good at it. But the side of her personality we saw was the blowing off steam side. So I didn't spend a ton of time learning everything about Chandra. I just developed what I needed to for those particular books, keeping in mind that that's a foundation for every role she plays going forward. She's now always going to have to be a friend who can drink hard and party hard and blow off steam that way, not in an obnoxious way, but that's just part of her personality. Work hard, play hard. I established that. It's published. There you go. Yeah. Forever forward.
So do you start, it sounds as if you start with personality. Is that the way is that what triggers you into thinking about a supporting character? Because sometimes you need them for plot, obviously, but what I'm saying is I'm fine with that. I can do that. It's the bringing them to life part that maybe I don't pay much attention to. Certainly in the draft anyway. Sometimes when I come back, I think, they just kind of sat around for the last 5 chapters. Don't they actually need to do something?
I think I actually start with plot with supporting characters because, when I started writing that Skog Hall book, I knew Chandra was Jess's best friend and they were going to have certain conversations, but I needed Chandra to get Jess into the biker bar where Jess normally wouldn't go, so that this guy who ends up being the murder victim was right. So that was about plot. So what is going to get Jess in that bar? Chandra's being a party girl and says, "Come on, let's go." And Jess is like, "Oh, okay, I guess, whatever." So now I've expanded the village of Skog Hall by getting into another piece of the setting. I've introduced new sort of tertiary level characters with that bartender. It became a major setting in the crime, so it's a plot piece. And it wasn't forced like, I need Jess in the bar, Jess is going to walk into the bar. It was very organic to Chandra's visit, and Chandra became a means to move the story in that direction. So would I have made her someone who likes to party if I hadn't needed that? I don't know, maybe not. but it worked out. And so
Okay.
now Chandra is stuck with that as one of her traits.
Right, yes. Okay, yeah, that's happened to me in the past as well, where I've needed a character for a certain thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's ended up being part of their personality because it was the only way to solve that, or not the only way, but an obvious way to solve that
Right.
plot turn. Okay.
Right. And think of your character's role in relation to the hero. So, do you need a love interest? Do you need a sidekick? Do you need a technical wizard? Do you need,
Mm,
a financial wizard? Do you need
mm.
like, let's look at Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Why is Willow a witch? Because Buffy needs a witch.
Yeah, yeah,
Why is Xander a jack of all trades? Because she needs someone who can be malleable, who can fill a lot of different roles, kind of as the plots require it. And then you get all of these other things like, well, Willow's boyfriend Oz becomes a werewolf. They fit with the plot, and then they lead to new circumstances that further develop the plots. In college, Buffy has the boyfriend who's in the underground military special ops unit, right? He's not just a college
handy.
kid. He's got to be the military special ops guy
Yeah, yeah.
because that's what works in your universe and in your plot lines,
And it's
right?
important not to be heavy-handed with this as well, isn't it? Because there's a fine line between, oh, it's really convenient. I happen to have, one of my friends is a tightrope walker, and we've got to get across
Mm-hmm.
this high building to another high building. How
Mm-hmm.
convenient.
Right.
So is that fine line of making it seem coincidental, but then useful in a way that maybe they hadn't thought about before as well. So if somebody's got a particular skill that's only briefly been touched on, and then
Mm-hmm.
they recognize between them, or because where I dislike is where the supporting character solves a big problem, and it's okay maybe once in a book if
Mm-hmm.
that's the one coincidence, but if it happens a lot with a lot of different supporting characters, and you start to think, well,
You've got
why
the
have I got
wrong
the protagonist?
protagonist. Right.
Yeah,
Right. Yes, that
yeah,
is that is a fairly common problem that writers need to just don't do it. Avoid,
yeah,
just
yeah.
stop people. No, if your sidekick or friend or whoever rescues your hero once in a book, that's totally fine. We all need help
Yeah,
and support.
yeah,
But when
yeah,
it comes time for the climax, the hero must save the day. And the
yeah,
friend or sidekick can be involved in a supporting role, but cannot be the one who takes charge. If they do, then reverse your characters, make your hero the sidekick and your sidekick the
yeah,
protagonist.
yeah,
You've got it backwards if your hero's not the hero. Simply put.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's where I've had that sort of fear of writing the supporting characters too much, because in the throes of then first drafting, I'm so in my protagonist's head that for me that drives the story forward, and I just forget these other people are kind of convenient actors who maybe need to drive a car or hand a gun or provide a piece of information.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I've veered. I'm all the way at the other end where the protagonist could probably be the only person in the story and it would still work. And I think they're better when your supporting characters don't save the day, but they're integral to making the protagonist form their success or not success,
Mm-hmm.
depending on the
Mm-hmm.
story's outcome.
Right, absolutely. You need your hero needs to have relationships with supporting characters, and those relationships have to complicate the hero's trajectory toward the climax, that main goal. And those
Yeah.
complications can be absolutely positive, loving, supportive things, like if your protagonist is 16 and her goal is to sneak out and meet her boyfriend, and her way to do that is to climb down the trellis outside her window, and then her dad takes the trellis off the house. That is a complication. The dad's not a bad
Yes.
guy. He's not being
No.
mean. He may not have even known about the hero's means of escape. He may have, he may not have, right? But that is a plot complication that you create.
Yes.
So
now the girl's got to persuade her younger brother, she's in an antagonistic relationship with, to kind of side with her and be an accomplice to help her get out of the house a different way. So it introduces all sorts of interesting ideas when you play with it like that. I like that.
Right. And it introduces also kind of a moral question of, well, climbing out your window is one thing, but bribing your brother and making him culpable and guilty and coercing him to lie, that's another thing. So you're increasing the trouble for your character in one very simple movement. Dad took the trellis down because he was tired of it, and look at how the story just ballooned.
We got progressive complications, which is the way any when we talked previously about tension and stakes, one way to keep increasing attention is to have those progressive complications, where it's something different every time as well. So it's not that he takes the trellis down but puts up some shutters and she could climb down the shutters, and he takes those down, but he puts up some vines and then she can climb. All right, already. There's also, there's one giant supporting character, the elephant that we haven't looked at in the room, which is the antagonist, I suppose, as well, really. That's probably, would you say the antagonist is the major supporting character?
I think the antagonist has a category of his own.
Right.
He's the protagonist's foil. So he's not supporting the protagonist, he's opposing the protagonist. So you've got the support team and you've got the opposition team. So the antagonist is not on par with the protagonist. Let's assume a single point of view story. So the antagonist does not have a point of view. The antagonist is not on par with her. But without the antagonist, we have no story because we need to drive conflict. You could almost have two character pyramids, one for your good guys team and one for your bad guys team. And then look at how those teams can come together to create conflict, but don't be so binary that you forget the role of the supporting characters in complicating the hero's journey, like we were just talking about with the dad. He's a good guy, but he's complicating life. Or in the past, I've brought up the FBI agent who's a mom, So she's traveling, chasing villains, but she misses her kids. The kids are supporting, but they're a complication.
Yes. So then we come to the antagonist supporting characters, which I find that's even harder again to not just have. And I'm sure I just always end up with a whole room full of just henchmen, It's good if you can single one out there. The antagonist needs a foil or a sidekick maybe occasionally.
Right. It's good to have, to never have cardboard, but it's also okay to use character types. Not stereotypes, but types, because they serve a purpose. They're a kind of characterization shorthand for you as well as for the readers. And so everybody gets the black cat twirling his mustache. That's kind of the archetypal villain type that you can see. So, with those kind of minor supporting characters, I'm a fan of using types just to add color and flavor to the story and to advance things quickly without slowing the pace by going into too much development over somebody we don't care about. Right. So look at the level of reader engagement. If I want my reader to be 100% engaged with my protagonist, that character needs 100% development. If it's 70 to 90% with her posse, those characters I need to know them to that 70 to 90% level. With the villains, henchmen, maybe we only care about them 30 or 40% because they're just there to die, basically. They're there to cause trouble and blow up or whatever. So, so give them shape, texture, color. Beyond that, backstory, why would you need it? home lives, again, you don't need it. If they're just gonna pass through a fight scene or two, yeah, give them enough distinguishing traits so that readers can picture them and tell them apart and not get lost in the
Yes.
action.
Yes. I've often had that in thriller stories where you're reading it and then you think, hang on a minute, was it Blumfeld who had the gun, or was it Smythe? I don't remember. Because
Right.
the
Yeah.
henchmen are all indistinguishable, and
Yes.
I've had to often go back a couple of pages, think, hang on a minute, where is this action happening and who with?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because they didn't have easily distinguishable enough traits,
Right.
which is a shame because I've already admitted that I write cardboard characters, so I'm sure the reader can find the same in mine. And there's a series I read recently by Pierce Brown, the Red Rising series, which I personally love, and it's sci-fi, but it's kind of I suppose it's space operatic, but it's also it has an ensemble cast, and a fair portion of that ensemble cast is also in the antagonist camp, and so there's unbelievable amount of backstabbing and politicizing. It's very Romanesque in its theatre. And yet has fast-paced elements and brilliantly done, I think, because of that. It's a book I read, or a series I read, and I thought, how do you keep track of all those supporting characters and with their own little evil plans that then sometimes twist around and they actually side with the antagonist? You go, oh wow, that's amazing! I never saw that coming. So I suppose that's something that you're probably never going to get out in the first draft. Maybe you might get a part of it, but then as you go back and realize that story you're trying to weave, you think, oh, I can use this person for that, but that means I need to sow that seed a little earlier on to show what they're really after.
Right.
And being the sort of the trick with supporting characters, I suppose, is to not just have them jump out of nowhere as a cardboard character, but to give them some depth through motion and some drips here.
Yeah, and what you're talking about there is that kind of weaving them into the plot. The more important that character's actions are to your plot, the more we're going to need to see them on the page, the more we're going to need to get to know them. So that, original 30% of development might jump up to 50% or 60%, depending on the role they play. So, and in just a really short scene where somebody's on and off the page, like an extra, a movie extra where they don't even need a name, you can have the guy in the hat, right? Yeah, the red shirt. So that would be the minimal amount of distinction you would need to do, just so that the reader's not confused, like you said, who's holding the gun.
Why is that's actually another pet peeve. Another pet peeve is that people name too many characters when they've no need.
Yes.
I got picked up by Ted, the taxi driver. Well, and then you're naming him Ted, but you only ever meet him for 5 minutes. It seems to me that you give too much credence,
right?
To a character. It's just better just to have them, the dude.
Right. I agree.
It's enough.
Yeah.
There's something.
Well, and also writers don't always realize how having multiple names with the same letter or the same sounding syllables is problematic for readers. So if you've got, John and Jake and Jill and Jim, what?
Ted and Terry.
And it's surprising how often you see this. But even if it's just two characters, if you've got two bad guys who are don't name them James and Johnny. It doesn't matter that one is one syllable and one is two. No, it's Terrence and Johnny or something. Give them, give them completely different names, and that alone will help readers distinguish them, because that becomes one of our visual cues as well as kind of an oral cue, in our inner hearing as we read.
I'm going to go with Sean and Johnny because I think they're real villains.
I think you're right.
Sorry, guys. That's really good.
Yeah.
I like the idea that the relationship must complicate, and I think that's probably where, if I'm going to make my characters less cardboard, and I think the only reason that I've had that feedback is because they spend a reasonable amount of time on the page, but we don't know enough about them. Their relationships are complicating, but we don't necessarily know why. That's probably the only missing part. So it's sometimes it's not like you've got to write this huge, a secondary character's got to have a huge monologue just so you understand where they're coming from. It's nothing to do with that at all. It might just be
no,
that
please don't.
you suddenly find out. No, exactly. You suddenly find out, that you catch your protagonist walks in and this, the woman's playing chess. You go, oh wow, I never knew you played chess. So yeah, I've been playing it since I was 6. I used to love beating my dad, and then all of a sudden you know that they're a strategist. Or enough in some tactical element that you might need later on, and maybe that's all you need.
Right. Well, so something that just occurred to me while you were talking is 2 TV shows I like. The Americans I'm watching right now, and it's about these 2 Russian spies who are living as Americans, and so they have to do all of this, spy work. And the faces are always the same, but they need to not be recognized by the people they're dealing with. So for characters where they have ongoing contact, they always have to have the same hair, makeup, clothing, all that kind of stuff for those ongoing characters. And then for just jobs, there's sort of a variety of costumes they can play on, like the janitor with the ponytail and the goatee, or the guy with the birthmark on his face and the blonde hair instead of the black hair, or this. So for inspiration, you could watch a show like that and say, I know this is the same person or the same 2 people over and over. They always have the same face, and I see that because I know it. But look at how many different ways they're presenting to the rest of the world. We sometimes have a failure of imagination because we are so used to looking in the mirror and we see the same thing every day, and we look at our friends and we see the same thing every day, and out our window and we see the same thing. So start imagining, how different can I make these people? What are their accents? What are their facial features, the scars, the hair, the gait, the way they walk, the way they talk, all of these little things. And you start going, oh, on this TV show, they just changed this one individual into like 8 different people in one episode. Okay, I'm seeing all the different moving parts I can put together to create distinctions between people.
Nice. I just made some notes.
Good.
I like it.
Good. Yeah, Orphan Black is the other one because Tatiana Maslany plays like 10 different characters. And they're clones, so they all have her face, but they were all raised in different parts of the world by different families, different socioeconomic backgrounds. So again, hair, wardrobe, accents, regional dialects, body language, gaits, all of that is different. And it's really fun for me as a writer to watch a show like that and just look at the characterization and how one individual can play so many different people. And then it makes us tune into what's different between, character A and character B, because I know it's the same person. Okay, so accent just changed, haircut just changed, body language, she's standing differently, she's moving differently. So it's useful to us to tune into some of that stuff and then apply it to our
it's
cast.
funny, isn't it, when you see actors that have been playing a particular role for a long time, like for example, the guys in The Big Bang Theory, for example, and then if you ever see them interviewed in real life, and whilst there's some resemblance because they're physically the same, you think, hang on a minute, that's not Leonard. It's
right.
different.
Right.
What's he done?
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, hang on a minute. You're used to them as a character, and you think of them more as the character than you do as the actor. And I know actors have said, famous actors have said that's partly a problem for them. In this, like, who is it? Who plays the? I forget his name now, but the guy who says, "You kill my father, prepare to die." And he says apparently.
Oh, in The Princess Bride.
He says it doesn't day go by where someone will stop him in the street and ask him to say the line.
To say that.
And he says, he says he does it because he understands.
Makes him happy.
It's easier to do it than, exactly. But that's who they think he is. Despite the fact he's played a gazillion other roles, that's the one he's remembered for.
Right.
Anyway, we're sort of off track of supporting characters, but that is a case of a supporting character there that has taken on a life of his own. There's no question about it.
Right, and that's a good example of a supporting character in a comedy who has a specific tag, something that the audience hears over and over and over, but it's a tag that is delightful in its way. So you could do that with a villain and give him a creepy tag. You could, so that's another way to make a character distinguished from everyone else on the page. Give them that trait or that tag that really works, and repeat it not ad nauseum, but enough so that it becomes kind of a thing,
Yes.
There
you go. Secondary character.
Yeah, I think we've just covered a lot of ways to make them distinguishable and interesting to the reader.
Yeah, and less cardboard.
Yes, no cardboard. It's hard to chew. It's just... Thank you for listening to the Storyworks Roundtable. Find all our shows, show notes, and videos at storyworkspodcast.com.